Hey guys, we're back with the notes for 5.6. So you've already seen solving by substitution. Today we're going to talk about the third and final method, and that's solving by elimination. Okay, so what is elimination? Well, it's the idea of canceling out two terms that are opposites. So they might have the same number, but one's positive, one's negative. So what I'm going to have you do is pause right now, copy everything you see, and then we'll get started on problem one. Perfect. So how will you know when to use elimination instead of substitution or graphing? Well, when you look at equations and they're stacked up, like the x's are on top of each other, the y's are on top of each other, your equals in the same spot, that is going to be elimination. Now, you might have something that already cancels. You might have to make it cancel, but it will still be elimination, okay? So I'm going to leave the steps up as we go through problem one. That way you can see what we're looking at. Okay, so this is elimination because the x's line up, y's line up, equal sign lines up. They're both in standard form. I'm ready to tackle it. Okay, first thing I'm going to look for is, do I already have something that cancels? Well, I have 4x and a negative 4x. Those already cancel. So I'm going to go ahead and circle them up, cross them off. That part's already done. So I can skip number 2. I already had something that cancels. Step number 3 says add the equations together. That means add what's left over together. So if I add this up, I have a positive 8y plus 2y makes 10y. Positive 20 plus a negative 30, that's the same as doing 20 minus 30. So a negative 10. This is a pretty easy equation to solve, right? Divide by 10 on both sides. And guys, I just got my y. My y is negative 1. You already know what a solution is supposed to look like. So if my x comma y, my y is negative 1. Okay? So we added the equations together. We solved for the variable. We have one step left. Our last step is to take that lovely y number. I'm going to change colors real quick. Take that y number and pick an equation to plug it back into. I like to pick the one with the smallest numbers or the one that doesn't have negatives in it, okay? I look at that top equation with no negatives and a smaller 20. I'm thinking that that's my go-to, okay? So here's what it looks like. I'm going to copy the equation 4x plus 8, but instead of putting the y, I'm going to plug in my y value that I just found, which was negative 1, okay? I'm going to solve this the same way I normally would to get x by itself. Okay, so I have an 8, distribute it times a negative 1, so 4x minus 8. I'm trying to get x by itself, so I'm going to kick out the loner 8. That gives me 28, and then I can divide by 4. My final answer for x is a 7, which means my answer is 7 comma negative 1. Okay. Pause that if you need to copy it and write it down. Otherwise, I'll meet you on the next page. All right. Problem number 2 is already set up for us also. I'm looking for something that cancels. Positive 6 and negative 6, both are y, so we're good to roll. Let's go ahead and look at this one. If these already cancel, then I add up what's left. 5x plus 4x makes 9x's. 1 and a negative 10 makes a negative 9. I'm going to solve for x, which gives me a negative 1. So this time, the negative 1 is my first number. He's my x. We're going to do the same thing. Take the x and plug it back into one equation. I'm thinking it might be easier to do that first problem because the numbers are smaller. It honestly doesn't matter which one you do. So I'm going to use the first one. All right, so 5 times a negative 1. I'm putting it in for x this time. Minus 6y equals 1, okay? So first thing I need to multiply, that makes negative 5. Then I can cancel that loner off, so I'm adding 5. Negative 6y equals 6. Divide out the negative 6. Shrink that just a little bit. Divide out the negative 6 and I get my answer. Y is negative 1 also, so my answer is negative 1 comma negative 1. Okay, I'm going to put this over here just so we have space. Okay, All right, so that's the basic gist of what you're trying to do. Cancel, solve, plug it back in, solve. That's it, okay? All right, now let's go back to our steps real quick. The idea of step number 2, the reason it has a star is because if nothing cancels, you have to make something cancel. Usually you can multiply one line by something to make it cancel. Let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in. Problem number 3, if I look at this, I notice that they both have 2 x's. Here's the problem. It would be great if it said like 2x minus 2, right? But it doesn't say that. So what we have to do is change it into something that will cancel, okay? So I'm gonna write in here, I want a negative 2x, okay? So what would I have to multiply this row by to get what I want? Well, I'd need to multiply it by a negative 1, okay? So I'm going to do that to every part of that top equation, and that's going to make a new equation, okay? So I'm going to put this new equation down here underneath. So negative 1 times 2x, negative 2x. Negative 1 times 4y, negative 4y. Negative 1 times 18, negative 18. I multiplied the whole row all the way across, and I copied it down. So now I have this problem, okay? All right, so on that problem, I now see something that I can cancel. I'm gonna highlight it so you see it. Change colors real quick. These are gone. I add up what I have left. That makes a negative 9y equals 0. Totally okay for it to equal 0 because when I divide that by anything, I get my first answer. My y is a 0, okay? I'm going to put that first part in. I'll put that in my first part of my answer. My y is 0, so it's the second number. Then I can take that and plug it back in. This time I have the y. I can plug it into any equation I want to. I think that first equation, this guy, was probably the easiest because there's no negatives, right? So I'm going to take that 0 and plug it in there right next to the 4 as my y. All right, so we're plugging in 2x plus 4 times 0 equals 18. Now, we all know that 4 times 0 is 0, so I'm not going to write that down anymore. Oops. That gives me 2x equals 18. Divide out my 2, and my x is 9, which means my answer is 9, 0. Okay? If you need to pause that, write it down, or listen again, go ahead and do that now. We're going to jump to problem 4. All right, so on problem 4, again, it'd be really great if these could cancel, right? But they're both negatives. That doesn't cancel. So what do we want? Well, we want one of them to be positive. We can't just decide that, okay? What we need to do is change all the signs, okay? So the way we do that is we write out, I want a positive 2x, okay? So what do I need to change? I need to change this top problem, multiply it by a negative 1, and that's going to make it a positive 2x. So remember, when I change it, I have to bring down to a new line, okay? Negative 1 times negative 2x is positive 2x. Negative 1 times positive 2y is a negative 2y. Negative 1 times 2 is a negative 2, okay? So now I only have that to work with. I do have opposites, so they are going to cancel. Go ahead and change colors. The x's are going to cancel, and I can add up what's left. So 1 and the negative 2 makes a negative 1y. Negative 4 and a negative 2 makes a negative 6. If I divide out that negative 1, my y is 6. I have my first answer. So if my y is 6, I'm going to put it as my top second number. And now I'm going to use it to find my other. So I have the y. I know it's 6. I think that this second equation is probably easier because the y is by itself. I don't have to multiply it by anything, okay? So I'm going to copy that one down. I'm plugging it in negative 2x plus a 6 equals negative 4. I don't have to multiply, and I didn't use parentheses because I didn't multiply. So I'm going to kick out that loner, kick out the negative 6. That gives me negative 10, and when I divide out the negative 2, my x is 5, which means that my answer, my solution, is 5, 6. Okay? All right, so we've seen what happens if it already cancels. We've seen what happens if the numbers are the same, but I want a different sign. 5 and 6 are going to be a little bit different. These problems, you're actually going to have to multiply it by a number, okay? So let's talk about problem 5. On problem 5, if I look at this, I can choose to cancel the x or the y. The way I know I can choose, is I can think about what could I do to this x to make it cancel? Well, I could multiply it and make it a positive 10x, right? I can choose to do that. Or I can say, ooh, I want the y's to cancel. I could multiply this number to make it into a negative 8y, and that would cancel. You actually kind of can choose. Sometimes one works and the other one doesn't, and that's okay. But most of the time, you can choose how you want to work it out, okay? All right, so I'm going to do the x's this time. Let's say I want to take 5x and change it into a positive 10x. Well, how do I do that? I would have to multiply it by a positive 2. So I'm going to take this whole line and multiply it by a positive 2. So 2 times 5x is 10x. 2 times negative 4, ooh, look at us getting lucky, negative 8y, which happens to be what I wanted anyways. And 2 times a negative 9 makes a negative 18. So my new line is down here, okay? All right, so this is what I'm looking at. Here's something really cool. My x's cancel, but so do my y's. So watch why this is awesome. X's cancel, y's cancel. So if I add up what's left, I have nothing. What's the math number for nothing? It's a 0. What is 18 and a negative 18? Well, that's also 0. So what do we do again when the numbers are the same? Well, we say that we have infinite solutions. Now, that doesn't always work when you multiply a line. We just got lucky on this one, and that's okay. But most of the time, the process will go through the same way that it did before, okay? So again, just because I multiplied my line by 2 does not mean it magically becomes infinite solutions. We just got lucky, and I needed an example of that, okay? All right, let's look at number 6. Number 6. Again, I can ask myself, what do I want? Well, I could turn this guy into a positive 6x. That would cancel. Or I could turn that 12y into a positive 24y by multiplying it by 2, and that would cancel also. I'm going to choose the y's this time, okay? So if I want to change that into a positive 24y, that means I'm multiplying it by a positive 2 again. Ooh, ugly 2. All right, so 2 times 3x. Ooh, we get lucky again, 6x. 2 times 12y is 24y. 2 times 9 is an 18 again. Okay, so I'm bringing my line down. This is what I'm working with right now. And we get lucky again because Miss Brown wanted you to have an easy couple examples. If the x's are going to cancel and the y's are going to cancel, then that means I have nothing left. What's the math number for nothing? 0. Now, don't jump to the same answer. It's not the same answer. Because what happens if I do negative 27 plus 18? That gives me a negative 9. That can't be infinite solutions because those numbers are different. So what's our final answer? Well, what's the only answer we haven't used so far? No solution. So when everything cancels and the numbers are different, that's no solution. Okay? All right, your assignment starts on page 167. Go ahead and get started on that. Come see me if you have any questions.